Alright, this is it. Final team reveal. This is not changing. Besides rookies, maybe, depending on selection. So, a few things I want to talk about before we get into it is I've thought about the sub rule, and I just think I'm leaning towards more mid prices only based on the fact that we actually going to have to watch out for this sub rule, and it's going to hurt a lot of rookies' cash gen. I feel like a lot of these 123, 117k rookies, even like Cowan and stuff like that, I think they could be a really high chance of getting subbed in that fourth quarter, and they might only be on like a 30 or 40, and that last quarter would maybe get them to a 60 or a 50, 60. And if they get subbed off, early in the last quarter, it's going to hurt a lot. So I'm leaning towards either picking more expensive rookies or mid prices. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way, and I think that's probably got to be the strat we have to think about. I haven't heard really anyone talk about, well, not that I can remember. So D1, Sam Doherty. Now I'm not 100% set on him. Like I'm not changing it, but like I'm not 100% confident on him. I really feel like he will get more attention. I think Sydney will probably go to him. The only thing that I do like is the fact that we have Adam Sard. So I don't know if Doherty will be the clear tag target. They might try and shut down Assad, or they might just say, you know what, let's just go for Cripps because Doherty and Sard are gonna, if we tag one of them, the other one's gonna go off. So I think that'll be the thought process for other teams. So I think if Doherty fires early, he might cop maybe one or two tags. But yeah, fingers crossed that Sard takes plenty of attention away from him. Now D2 is not someone I have talked up at all preseason. And that's Jordan Ridley, and that's just because I don't like any other options, and I think the risk to reward is quite good for Ridley. 10% ownership, so he's relatively potty. Seems like he's in a lot of the content creators teams. The thing is, Sinclair's got his roll up in the air. Sicily's so expensive, and Sam Mitchell's come out and said that he might play forward or lockdown. Like, that's a big red flag. Tom Stewart, obviously he gets 2 tags in the first 6 rounds, so I'd rather just upgrade to him. I think you can get him for 550-ish. Dawson, they came out and said they're going to bloody tag him. And then anyone else I don't really like. I don't like the sort of anyone else until you get to Ridley. So Ridley, I mean, it seems like they're going to play him as a pure intercept role, which would obviously score 100, I think, quite comfortably and be a top 6 defender. The only question mark is, are they going to have him as a lockdown? And he's obviously not going to get 100% of the kick-ins like he did when he was averaging 130 or whatever over those first few rounds. So we can't expect that high, but I think we can expect him to get to the 105 range, which in my opinion would be more than enough. And I'm happy to take a punt on him. Now, I did have McGovern here at one point, and it's someone that's definitely still tempting me, but I just think, the durability risk is probably the only thing that's hurting me at this point. And I think I've got a few other risks in my team and some of the older guys that I probably can't risk a McGovern as well as one of the guys in my forward line. I think it's a little bit too risky. And the way McGovern plays, like he crashes packs hard, and obviously the body's not going to be in the most durable condition at this point of his career. So I think he's more likely to get injured than not, and I'd rather just play safe with that pick. As as dumb as it sounds, considering I've said play risky and whatnot, I just think he's one that I just think he's just a bit too risky to start with, and I don't want to have injuries early on. So D3, we've got Elliot Yeo, and a lot of people have gone off him. I think he's really the only 300k sort of player in that back line that's worthwhile. I've considered someone like a Ben Long or a Hunter Clark, but I just can't trust their role. And Yeo's got the proven scoring behind him. I just think, high ownership. It's one of those picks where it's just easier to play with the pack in this situation, because if it goes wrong, it's pretty much everyone's in the same boat. And if it goes wrong, we could maybe drop him to a Hunter Clark or one of the mid prices like a Liam Jones or someone like that. So I actually haven't gone Liam Jones, and I've gone Jack Bowes. Now I think the upside to Bowes is much higher than the upside to Jones. I think Bowes averaged like 95, and I think he started off one year averaging like 100 and something before he lost his role. I think doesn't really matter where he plays as long as it's not like forward. I think he's either going to play back or mid. there's plenty of room in that midfield. I think there's plenty of room in that midfield because, like, yeah, they lost Selwood, but like think about who they've got running through there. Dangerfield's getting old. I don't think he's going to be due for a high CBA season like he has been in the past. I don't think Guthrie will either. He's getting a bit older, but like he might be the one that would get most CBAs. I think Bruin's pretty safe for a 60-50% CBA season. So I think there is room for Bose in there. I don't know if he's better in the midfield or the back line. And it is a bit of a blind pick, and I've said it's not a good pick, but I just think at this point I'd rather him than Liam Jones because the upside's definitely greater. So Jack Bowes, yeah, it's a bit of a risky one, but at this point I'm happy to take the punt. And then Gimby or whatever however you say his name, seems like a pretty safe pick. I mean, the dude had 100 points in half a footy. Sorry, so I think, yeah, you'd be stupid to even have him on the bench at this point, I think. Kid looks like he's going to be a gun. And then Constable at F6. So I think Constable's scoring is quite clearly there, like the potential. He was obviously super good at Geelong, played a bit of a different role. But I think, yeah, in the back line, like he knows how to find the ball. So I think he could go in the 70s, to be honest, which would be huge. But I'm expecting 60s. Which would still be okay, I think. And then on the bench, obviously Wilmot. So he's got that wing role. It's not the most Supercoach friendly role, but the job security looks quite good. And it seems like they rate him a bit. And then Connor McKenna. One that I don't really like, but he's got that 80-70 potential. The role's much better than like a Liam Jones, I think. It's because he's more of like a dashing halfback, like a Sard sort of type. Obviously not as good as Sard, but a much similar role. And Jones could be more of a lockdown player. Let's get into the midfield. So this is where it gets pretty interesting. So we'll start off with my M1, and it's Bont. And I just think it's hard to go without Bont at this point. And I know it seems like everyone's got him, but I don't think he'll get tagged. I feel like he handles tags well if he does get tagged. I think if they're going to tag the Bulldogs, they're going to Libba. And it just seems like the upside for Bont, the potential, is just insanely good. So I don't think I could not pick Marcus Bontempelli based on the upside now that no Dunkley. And the numbers without Dunkley are obviously off the charts. So yeah, it's risky not picking him. It's one that I'd rather just have him as that captaincy option every week. And yeah, I just don't see why he wouldn't work out and at least add 5 points to his average, which would make him, M3 at least. But he could literally add like 10 points to his average, and I wouldn't be surprised. So M2, I'm backing in Jack Steele. Now I know he had a bad practice match, but if you look at his ownership percentage, my camera's in the way, but it's 12%. He's getting seriously slept on. The upside is there, and I don't want to talk too much about him because I feel like I will convince people on him. He's getting, 80% CBAs. The role is definitely there. He had 17 touches, right, and 9 tackles. I think he averaged like 7 or 8 tackles last year, so we can expect the tackles to be up there. The only question mark is that whole, he's lost weight and whatnot, but his tackling would be the most affected thing by the weight loss, I feel. And to see that he's had 9 tackles in a practice match is a really good sign, and he scored 84 from 17 touches. I mean, how often in the real stuff is Jack Steele going to have 17 touches? I think he's pretty locked to go in that 25 to 30 range for disposals, and with those tackles, he's definitely capable of going back to the 120s, and I think the value is just too good for me personally. Another thing is I think they tag Sinclair over Steele more often than not. I don't think teams value Steele as that, that gun player, let's shut him down. I really don't see that happening. I feel like he copped a few tags in his 126 season, and that just didn't really affect him. It's the same thing as Rory Laird, and it's hard to tag those beast tacklers. And Libba might not find it too hard, but I feel like he gets I don't know. I feel like Libba can't shake him as well as your Laird and Steele. I don't know. I don't have numbers behind that. That's just more of a general thought. And then M3, it's hard to not go with Tom Green at this point. And it's not even about ownership percentage. It's just about upside. It's just too high. I think he can be a top 8 quite comfortably, maybe even push into that top 6 range. Yeah, it's his midfield now. Like I said about Steele and Lead, I don't know if Green can be tagged. I feel like that will go to Kelly, and I think Kelly will cop some attention if he starts well, like people are expecting him to. If you're picking him, he's probably going to be the one that gets a tag, just because he's the most damaging player on that team, quite comfortably. So I don't see why you wouldn't tag Kelly, and Green should just run amok. Should get so many contested possessions, tackles. Like, I think clearance machine. He's definitely slimmer, so I think you'll be able to get more of the outside ball as well. So a few cheapies, hopefully. And yeah, I think you can go at that 110 mark, 110, 115, quite easily. So yeah, happy with the Green pick. Now it gets mid-pricey. So we're going to go with Jacob Hopper at M4. Now it's light, it definitely is light, but I think Hopper can go in the 90 to 95 range. And one thing I said in the Discord last night is I think that these Richmond guys, now this is not like a stat or anything, but I think these Richmond guys will sort of feel like they have something to prove. Like, playing for GWS, it's more of like a chilled, laid back sort of environment, I feel. Whereas a club like Richmond, where the spotlight's on them, especially like these two guys who are getting the midfield responsibility at probably the biggest club in the league, it's like I feel like they're gonna want to really not show off, but they're gonna want to show up, obviously, because they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Now it could go the other way. It could be too much pressure and they could flop. But I think they're going to be determined to have really big years. And yeah, the midfield opportunity is obviously already there. So it's hard to go without a Hopper or a Taranto at this point. I think, yeah, so much upside, and I feel like upside is going to be said so much in this video. But yeah, that's what I've kind of based my team off. I feel like it's kind of safe the way I've picked my team, but no Laird or Clary I'm happy with at this point, just because I think, you know, they're bound to drop a little bit. Now obviously it is very safe to start them. I wouldn't start Clary, I would start Laird, but yeah, I just think they're going to drop a little bit, and with so much mid-price value, I think stepping stones to get to them might not be the hardest thing, but the timing is going to be the tricky part. So we'll see what happens. I'm confident in Bond Steel being my VCC options. Anyway, we'll move on to M5, which will be Big Bad Warple. So he's one that I'm not very confident in. I do like the fact that he was on about, I don't know what he's on 3/4 time. I think it was like 90, maybe even higher. And then he had like basically a scoreless last quarter. That's because he played forward. And I just think they were trialing some things in that last quarter in their midfield. So you give him 4 quarters of an actual midfield role where he's like predominantly mid, like predominantly their sort of go-to clearance tackling player. I think he can get to the 95. I don't see him going much more than that. I think it's more of like an 85 to 95 range. And if he falls just short, I mean, so be it. Obviously, there's that 150k rule, but I'd much rather have someone like him on field where I think he is a consistent 80 plus every week. With this new, like not new midfield role, but this guaranteed midfield role. I think he's consistent 80 plus every week. And I'd much rather have someone like him who I don't think is a sub threat than someone like an Oscar Baker who could maybe get subbed out in a game, which would hurt a lot. So yeah, I think plenty of potential for Warple. I'm happy to take a punt on him, and if he goes wrong, there's options, you know. Like we could go to a Callahan, a Flanders, a Fife. Like there's plenty of options if one of these picks go wrong. So I don't think it's as risky as what we think, starting at least a couple of the 300kers. Who's next? So Will Ashcroft. Not much to say about him really. I watched the AFL draft expert guy's video on him, and he reckons like he was just talking him up massively, and he could be like a 95 average, which would be insane. I mean, the role looks like it's there. I don't want to jinx him, but yeah, he should make us plenty of money. Everyone's got him though, so everyone's gonna have him on field too. So it's not really gaining anything on the competition, but yeah, Jet. What's his percentage? 78%. Damn, it's got to be one of the highest that I can remember. Anyway, M7 is Cam McKenzie. I think the role's there. Sam Mitchell's been coming out with some bullshit saying, oh, maybe he's not going to play in the midfield, maybe not even going to play at all. Bro, he's literally like your top three fucking players. I don't know how they couldn't play him. I think Sam Mitchell might be one of the biggest dickheads of a coach at this point. Like, tagging Nick Dacos in a practice match. Fuck, like, talking all this smack about Sicily playing forward. Like, I hope Hawthorn lose every game and that fucking dickhead gets fired, honestly. Anyway, starting to get a bit triggered here. M8, we got Will Phillips, and I actually like having him on field. So had 23 CBAs or whatever. Obviously that game had a ridiculously high amount of CBAs, but I think the percentage was still quite high, like in the 60s maybe. I think Clarko really likes him, and I saw on that whiteboard little leaked thingy that he had like Phillips as like the inside mid, and he had a couple of other mids that were like not in that part that I thought could have been. So it seems like they really want to take his game to the next level, and I think there's actually a lot of potential for this kid. He had a really bad disposal efficiency in that game, and they did play the Bulldogs, like top 3 mid in the comp, arguably. So I think Phillips could actually go in the 80 plus range. Like, as someone like him who's going to play inside mid, I'd much rather field over someone like a Callahan or a Flanders who's going to play wing. Like, Phillips' role is just so much better. People think just because they're 100k cheaper, then he's not quite worth it. But I think it'd be stupid to pick a Callahan or a Flanders and not field Phillips. I mean, you could have Phillips on the bench, but yeah, I think he'll be okay, and he's quite highly valued at the club, it seems. So really happy to field Phillips. And then who do we have? So we have at M9 we have Oscar Baker. So it looked really good in the pracky. Rolls a little bit up in the air, I guess. I don't know too much about the roll, but at this point we'll just take the punt on him. Chesser, well, he looked okay in the prackies. And yeah, for now, just a mid-rookie, I guess. And I've got, where is he? Big bad Jason Gilby. He probably will never play a game. He will be my loop. I'll explain why in a second. But yeah, he'll be my loop. So first ruck is going to be Jared Witts, and then we're going to go Marshall. So Witts, I've been on him all preseason. I know a lot of people have been hating on him. I've flirted with the idea of Darcy, but I think Witts is the guy for me. No one taking his role, no one taking his ruck time. Yeah, he doesn't have the same follow-up game as like a Darcy or a English and have that same outside game as those guys, but you know what? He's going to score so much from hit-outs, and it seems like he's had an unreal pre-season and he's really fit, and he seems motivated as well. So I think, yeah, that midfield's obviously quite good. They're only going to get better this year. Like Rowell and Anderson, you would think just with natural progression will get better, even Took to an extent. So yeah, should be plenty of hit-outs to advantage for Witsy, and I think a 110 average is pretty safe for Wits, and I think that's in top. I think that'll be ruck one, to be honest. I think Gordon Grundy, while they're tempting, they played Richmond, who had like a first game of defending both of them. So I think that game is completely out of proportion, and we can't take too much from it. But I could see people falling for the Gorn trap. I'd much rather just wait for him to be a forward if he gets that forward status. And that's the thing. Like if you're getting Gorn, you're taking a risk about you're taking a risk on the fact that you would have to go and expect him to be a forward, whilst Witts is just pumping out big scores from the get-go. So, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Gorn. Anyway, Radigalia is my R3. Now, I think there's upside for cash to be made, and I said he was a trap, but I think, seems like they actually rate him, so he might actually not have the worst job security. Hopefully, he can average in the 60s. It's probably a big ask. It's probably going to be like a 50. But at this point, it could just be like a slow cash gen, and should be like good cover. Anyway, onto the forward line. We will go with Josh Dunkley, obviously, because it's Dunkley. Not much to say about him. He's a lock. And now at F2, I'm still firm on my position with Cogs over Rosie. Reason being, I just think there'll be more sustainable CBAs. I don't think Rosie's 80% is sustainable every week. Like, he didn't get that in the first practice match. Why? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing at Port. It just seems fishy to me. Like, there's something off. To me, the logic doesn't quite add up. I know there's lots of upside and he's a gun and whatnot, but I just reckon he's going to be he's not going to be a trap. I think he's pretty safe to average in that 95, 100 range. But I'd much rather Cogs, who I think can go 110. I think he went 111 with the departure of Leon Cameron. And easy first 6 weeks, very easy. So, as well as I think Callie will get the tag over him. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of Cogs at this point. And I think he's still got a bit of something to prove after, the whole getting dropped as captain and whatnot. So, yeah, Cogs over Rosie for me still. I will stand by that, and a lot of coaches won't. I mean, look at that, 47% ownership to 16. I'm happy to be wrong on this one. That could be, it's not Rosie that it's not Rosie that I'm worried about. It's more Ken Hinkley. So, I think Rosie's a gun. But he's also damaging. He's much more damaging up forward than any other of those midfielders in that team, which makes me think, Ken Hinkley, well, he would, if I was him, I probably would play Rosie more forward because the other guys can't play forward the same way Rosie can. So it just depends. It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one to get a read on for me. Anyway, moving on, Tim Taranto, safe pick, I think. Yeah, wasn't the biggest fan on him in my rant video, but I just think, I think the whole coming to Richmond is a big thing for these guys, and I think they will have a bit of a chip on their shoulder and something to prove sort of mentality. And yeah, I think he's pretty safe for a 105 plus. Then we're going to go with Errol Gould, and so this seems risky, but I think 10% CBAs last year. If he bumps that up even by another 10%, probably goes up 5 points in his average, which would be in the 90s. That probably wouldn't be quite enough, but I think natural progression probably adds another 5, so it'll go 95, and that's if he only goes 10% up. I think he probably goes to like a 40% CBA now after what he's done in the preseason. I just find it hard to, Luke Parker came out and said he's going to play more mid-time. It's a pretty general statement, but I just find it hard to ignore 190 in a practice match, like 45 and 3. That is very hard to ignore, and the risk of not picking him, obviously he's not going to do that every week, but he did against a pretty solid midfield, obviously no Cripps and Walsh, but a pretty strong-bodied midfield, like defensive sort of midfield. He could go big, like he could go huge, and I'm talking like 120s. I don't know if he can average 120s, but like in that CBA, that many CBAs, maybe he could. He could be a tag target as well at this point because he looked that good. So I just think the risk of not picking him is much more greater than the risk of picking him. That's my logic on Goulden. He could trap us all, but it's going to come down to Longmire at the end of the day, and that's why I don't like putting faith in these coaches. I'm already putting faith in Longmire, but I'm not putting faith in fucking Ken Hinkley's bald head. Yeah, so this is the interesting one where I can get a bit of a jump on other competitive teams, and that's Jack Zeeble. And I'm not going to say he's going to go 107 again. I do think he can score without kick-ins, and he's obviously not going to get all the kick-ins like he did, what we assume. I don't think he's going to be locked down. And I actually saw him pushing up. Now, the second practice match, the whole North team looked lost. But the first pracky match, I actually saw him really pushing up into stoppages, playing that similar role to Doherty, which I really, really like. And I don't know if he can go 100 plus, but I'm pretty confident he can go 90 to 100. And that would be enough. I think that would be enough to make money and just keep someone like a Sheasel or a Philippou off the field pumping out potential 30s or 40s. So that's my logic on that. I think I can, the upside maybe is 105. That's like very, very wishful thinking, but we know he is capable in that role. We do know that. So yeah, he's one I'm pretty comfortable picking, to be honest, but there is risk to it. Obviously Luke McDonald I don't think was there in that 107 year, and Aaron Hall's a bit of a pest, but Hall's durability is pretty terrible, so knowing him, he'll probably get injured anyway. Alright, F6, someone I've been hot on ever since that practice match and has not left my team and will not leave my team unless he's named on the bench in the team selections, because that means Geelong don't rate him as highly as what we do. Well, we assume. So Tanner Bruin, I think he's safe for a 40+% CBA year. I think he's their best midfielder, including Dangerfield. Dangerfield, I feel like, will spend more of like a 50-50 split. He'll get CBAs, but he's getting older. Like, how much do they want to, you know, risk him playing that physical CBA role at this age? I don't know if they will, to be honest. Even Cam Guthrie, like, he's probably the other one that'll probably take a few CBAs. But I think Bruin, they recruited him for a reason. He looked unreal. I'm super confident in this pick, and people probably think I'm stupid on it, but I think he actually could be a top 6. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he went 100+ this year, because, yeah, he's actually got a good role, and he's a tackling machine. Like, he can do it all. He literally can do it all. And against the best midfield in the comp, I don't see why you couldn't pick Tanner Bruin. Anyway, rounding out the forward line, we got Green and Davey. So just placeholders for now, and something that I don't really love, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's forward rookies. They're not going to be good in a year. They'll be slow burns, but as long as I have them off the field, is pretty much all that matters. So that'll do for the team now. Let's talk about vice-captain, because we're actually finally at the point of the season where we can talk about that and not sound stupid. So I've flirted with the idea of Witts against Sydney, and I think it probably is what I'm going to do, because his last game against Sydney, he went, what did he go? He went 132. I think Laddams will give up a lot of points. So I'm probably going to go Bont into Witts, and I don't think many will go Witsy. So I'm confident in that one. But at the same time, like, any ruckman is kind of scary a little bit. So I could maybe switch to a steal, or I could go Bont into Dunkley. And that you know what, that probably is what I'll do, just because I want to see a big game out of Witts first. But I do think if you are considering like a unique option, Witts is good. But it probably is safer to go Dunkley into Bont. So Dunkley finishes at 4th. So he'll finish pretty much right when that Bont game is starting. So I'll have to be quick, and you'll have to make a bit of a judgment, because the scaling probably won't be out, and might be a few minutes left in that last quarter. But I think a 120+ is, you take that. Even maybe a 115 in round 1, because you just don't want to lose points. I got screwed over captaining Patrick Cripps against Gold Coast last year. You know, a safe pick. Came out, kicked a goal in like the first 2 minutes, and thinking, sweet, he's going 150, and he got injured on 30. So when you have a straight C on someone like that, it can absolutely cook your ranking. And like, I never fully recovered. I finished like 800th in the end, but that hurts. Like, that's a big hurt. But yeah, that's the team. That's how I'm going to run it. In terms of loophole, I might actually loop. Can't really loop. I might loop Will Phillips on. I mean, you may as well, right? So if you have Oscar Baker on field, and then Will Phillips is emergency, so Phillips plays at the 145, yeah. And then if he goes 60+, I'll just sub Gilby on for Baker. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, McKenna will probably be my emergency, Radigaleo will be my emergency, and maybe Fergus Green. I don't think any other loops probably worth doing, but I do rate Phillips. Like I said, I think he'll be fine. That's it for the video. That's it for the team reveal. Let me know what you guys have to say. Yeah, it's going to be a crazy year. I've never done so much preseason research in my life. I don't think. This has been the most headachy sort of year ever, I think. I've had so many countless nights of just not being able to sleep, because I'm thinking, fuck, what about this primo? Like, what if this guy gets tagged? Like, it's just so hard. And there's mid-prices. Fuck, what if I miss out on a Callahan and he goes 110 in round 1? Don't think that's going to happen, but God, it's a headache of a year, and good luck to everyone, because I think there's going to be a lot of luck involved this year. But that's it. I'll see you in the next one.